guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror film from Italy, English language, released in the year 2014, directed by Lucas Bevetto, and this film is called The Perfect Husband. So The Perfect Husband is about this young married couple who have had a very traumatic experience in their past and is having a very negative effect on their relationship. So the wife is devastated by what's happened, so the husband really wants to try and revitalise their relationship and kind of reevaluate where they are. So he decides that the best thing for them is to go on a romantic getaway far from their busy lifestyle to the remote cabin located in the woods. So he does this, the wife starts to relax, things start to be going okay until the husband gets the suspicion that the wife is keeping something from him that is very big. And so he is desperate to try and get to the truth. As I said, he doesn't know if he's onto something or if it's just his state of mind, but it very soon turns into a strong sense of paranoia that threatens to boil over into pure insanity. So what started off as a romantic getaway has turned into a very hellish nightmare for all involved, and so what that nightmare is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Perfect Husband. After seeing this trailer, I was kind of intrigued by it. I didn't really have high expectations by it, but I actually thought that this could be worth a viewing. And I will say that the movie does have positives. The biggest positive to this film is that it is very psychological. At the start of the film, you know that something really bad has happened to this married couple, and that really bad element is kept a secret for most of the film. So as it slowly goes along, you get more and more insight into these people's history. And so I thought there was a very tense sort of standoff between these two characters, and you felt that this husband truly loved his wife and the wife loved the husband, but it does show you the negative impact of something that has happened that is very traumatic and catastrophic, and how our past can always haunt us. And so I thought that element of it had a creepy sense to it. And when they go out into the cabin, I thought it was a throwback to many films. Roman Polanski, Alfred Hitchcock. There's a very slow tension building that ultimately promises to be something that is far greater. So it starts off as a snowball, but it's slowly evolving into basically an avalanche. And so you know that the situation is slowly boiling over. It's like the kettle. You put the kettle on to boil, it starts off as quiet, but then it slowly starts to whistle and get louder. And this is the way the film kind of goes about things, is that it starts off with a very calm, and then it sort of simmers to the point where you feel that, okay, this has just gone completely nuts, and now we're into a horror film. So I thought there was a slow tension, and there was a considerable patience to the film that I wasn't expecting from a movie of this sort of kind. And I will say once again that another plus of the film is that it was very well shot. The cinematography is actually pretty good. It did capture some very dark and eerie moments. I thought the acting, I do have a problem with the acting that I'll go into a little bit later, but I like the fact that Lucas Bevetto casted actors who actually speak English as a first language, and so it was natural in that way, and that's something I appreciate, because there's a few other Italian horror films that I watched recently where you've got Italian actors speaking English and they're trying to pass off the fact that this is their language, but it doesn't feel right, so you're kind of taken out by that. But this movie didn't have that, so it felt like Lucas Bevetto actually went out of his way to make an English-speaking film with English-speaking actors, and so that's something I liked. And I will say the movie is very brutal. Some of the brutality was shot very well, and it does promise what the trailer delivers. It's basically a very dark film about psychology, and when psychology breaks, how bad things can go. Unfortunately, The Perfect Husband is nowhere near as good as it could have been, because it does have that old curse of Italian horror films. Now, in the past, my biggest problem with Italian horror was the dubbing. The dubbing, the English, it just doesn't feel right. It just felt very unnatural, and I can't get myself into those films. And then more recently, as I said before, you've got these directors who are casting Italian actors who are speaking English. So you never get into these characters, you never get into a realistic sense, because it doesn't feel natural. Whereas in this film, yes, they do cover some of those little problem areas, but unfortunately there are moments in the acting from this cast that really take you out of it. And once again, it doesn't feel very natural. It doesn't feel as good as it really should have been. So you've got this couple that in some instances you believe they're a genuine couple, and you actually feel, okay, this is pretty good. The dialogue is fairly decent, but, oh, hang on, something has just been said that didn't feel right. And so you think, okay, that was very silly. And so it wouldn't be a problem if this happened during the moments where it's just slowly building, but when you've got very tense moments, when something happens that just is out of left field and you think that didn't seem right, it takes you out of that particular scary moment. So the movie wants to sustain the pressure, it wants to keep the stranglehold on your neck, but when something silly happens, it takes you out of it and it releases that grip, and you think that didn't seem right, and then it just happens over and over again, and you think, okay, there is something within the storyline and the actual the script that is lacking, and it's that unnatural source that I think pollutes a lot of Italian horror films. Now, don't get me wrong, if you are an Italian horror fan, I do apologise, but for me, this is why I can't get into these sorts of films, is because it does have that unnatural quality. And this movie, as I said, it does fix up problems that have polluted horror films in the past from Italy, but it does have new problems now, is that unnatural quality in the dialogue. Some of the acting was very bad, very inconsistent. Some of it was okay, some of it was very bad. There are situations in the film that were very ridiculous, that felt like it was just put there to shock you. And then there's a twist at the end of this film that was absolutely ridiculous and completely blew the whole film for me. I mean, this is a movie that did have positives. The psychology, as far as the tense sort of suspense is concerned, was there, but it's only there in patches. And unfortunately, it's the negatives that outweigh the positives. It is a very brutal film. I do appreciate some of the ballsy brutality that director shows. I thought the wife of the film is very easy to look at, but unfortunately, it feels like the director has gone for the looks as opposed to someone who can actually bring a better performance. So there's a lot of unnatural quality to this film that really did prevent me from liking it. The twist is very stupid, and as a result of this, I come away from The Perfect Husband wanting a lot more, wanting to like the film a lot more, but ultimately coming away from it feeling quite disappointed. So overall, for The Perfect Husband, I'm only going to give it 1.5 stars. Probably going to, I'm going to say skip the opportunity to see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies. I'll see you later.